Welcome back to MotionPic Recap. Today we're going to recap a movie titled Greedy. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. Two parents ask their kids if they want to go and see Uncle Joe, and they immediately scream that they would rather stay cleaning their room. Almost crying, they are forced to come along, and they drive to the estate of Uncle Joe. The butler opens the door for them, and then suddenly a servant comes crying, saying he has died. The family gets excited, hurrying up to see Uncle Joe's body, but are shocked to discover it was only Uncle Joe's doctor. Seeing Uncle Joe alive, they start to kiss his ass with compliments. He looks good. The parents say their sons Joe and Joe are learning business to take over his big company one day, and when asked what they do, the eldest son says he was promised $30 to be nice to him. Soon after, when more family arrive, all are exited to see the ambulance as they think Uncle Joe died. But learning Uncle Joe is still alive, they are all disappointed. At lunch later, each family couple tries to make the other couples look bad in front of Uncle Joe. They get angry at each other for mentioning and revealing bad things about them, and try their best to justify their own bad sides to Uncle Joe. One of the couples has tried to hide from Uncle Joe they have divorced, but act as they are still together. Uncle Joe, amused, hears on about all the negative stuff they reveal about each other to make themselves look good, and the others look bad. One of the men is fired from his job for having been selling company secrets, and the accused gets very angry. Another man tries to look better than the others by saying they should be kind to each other and celebrate Uncle Joe's birthday. And suddenly a young woman appears. Uncle Joe introduces her as Molly to his nieces and nephews, and she acts cute towards him, saying she's going shopping, and asks if he wants anything. He says he doesn't, but tells her to take a couple extra $100 if she sees something she likes for herself. The nieces and nephews become very worried, and ask if she is housekeeping, and Uncle Joe calmly replies she is more of a nurse, helping him with various things. Somewhere else, a young man called Daniel is bowling professionally, but it is not going very well. He loses in the tournament, and later that night he and his girlfriend Robin are listening to a couple in a room above them, in a motel, that are fighting, and suddenly the ceiling falls in. Daniel is upset, saying he is going to give up on bowling since he injured his wrist recently, and has lost his previous ability to play. She asks what he is going to do instead, and Daniel says some guys offered him generously to become a partner in a bowling business, but that he would need $300,000, which he doesn't have. He says his dream is to become a bowling teacher, but that she would then earn more than him. And Robin says that it doesn't matter, as long as they are happy together. The nieces and nephews have hired a special investigator to look into Molly, and she says Molly spends her days mostly swimming in the nude at Uncle Joe's house. They remark Molly is just after his fortune, and will probably get it all, starting to blame each other for being in this situation where they might now get no inheritance. One says Joe's cousin Daniel is probably happier than them, having once told their Uncle Joe he is a cruel, manipulative, and cheap man, having left them all to live a peaceful life. They remember the night Daniel took his wife and left, now living in Brazil to save the rainforest, having a kid whose name is Daniel too that plays bowling. Meanwhile, Daniel has found some kind of bowling flow, and is climbing fast in the score among the contestants. We see a montage of him doing strike after strike, and people are cheering on. He suddenly doesn't manage to do a strike, and fails at doing a spare too, having only one chance more. His girlfriend Robin says he now needs to make a strike or a spare, and then get an extra 3 pins on top to win. He fails doing a strike and ends up in a tricky situation, gets sweaty and tries to focus, but successfully manages to get the spare he needed. Feeling that it's now easy to get just 3 more pins, he doesn't really focus, and hits his leg, which hurts his hand, and he drops the ball, losing the tournament with just 3 points. That night Daniel is very upset, yelling in anger at anything that irritates him, and behaves very irrational. He kicks up a bowling ball and without thinking, throws it out of a window, hitting a car down below. Robin feels sad for him, and hugs him, and then suddenly, the detective knocks on their door wanting to talk. She explains to them the situation with Molly and his Uncle Joe, asking if he or his father can come and help stop Molly, but Daniel says these people practically worship money and don't want to become like them. She says it's nice to meet an honest man living in that family, giving her card, and when she is gone he remembers it was Uncle Joe that taught him bowling. At Uncle Joe's house they are all singing happy birthday. And one man notes they have a very special birthday present for him this year. They all gather to watch an old recording of one of Uncle Joe's previous birthdays. In the video we first see Daniel Sr. having an argument with Uncle Joe, and then we see young Daniel Jr. appearing singing Joe's favorite song. Uncle Joe gets emotional seeing himself happy with little Daniel, and a tear falls down his cheek. And suddenly Daniel himself appears in person. Both Uncle Joe and Daniel become happy, seeing each other, giving one another a hug. The two talk and Daniel explains the others reached out to him to come here and celebrate his birthday. Uncle Joe wonders why he thinks that is, but Daniel just sits quiet, and so Uncle Joe asks if it has anything to do with Molly, and Daniel says yes. He wonders what Daniel thinks about her, and Daniel says he thinks it is ridiculous. He is together with that young woman, noting he is much older. The nieces and nephews ask what they are talking about, and Uncle Joe says they talk about how important Molly has become to him, how he wants her to find some good fortune in life, but adds Daniel has made him think about family, asking Molly if she thinks family comes first. Molly replies, "It depends on the family," and they all become quiet for a bit. Until Uncle Joe suddenly says he would like to see Daniel sing his favorite song. The nieces and nephews try to pressure Daniel into singing, but Daniel says this is pathetic, and so Uncle Joe says he'd rather spend time with Molly for the rest of the day, but tells Daniel he would love to meet his girlfriend tomorrow. The next day Robin has arrived, and they watch Uncle Joe swimming in his pool. Uncle Joe asks about Daniel, and Daniel explains he has been bowling for the past 10 years, but that he is quitting to go get a teaching degree instead, which Uncle Joe remarks will make Robin the breadwinner, which is not that good. Robin pressures Daniel into mentioning the business opportunity he has been offered, and Daniel explains there is an alternative to becoming a teacher, and it would mean he needs $300,000 to invest. Uncle Joe tells Daniel to come and join him in the pool, and as he does, Joe says he will wrestle him for the money. If Daniel wins, he will give him the $300,000. Daniel says he can't beat up an elderly guy, and before he knows it, Uncle Joe has pushed him under the water. Daniel gives up, and Uncle Joe says he will give him the money anyway, because he is nicer and better than the rest of the family. But then Uncle Joe adds that there is one condition: that he calls his father Daniel Sr., and tells him that he was wrong about money meaning nothing, and that he prefers Uncle Joe's company over his father. Daniel tells Uncle Joe he is sick and leaves with Robin. And even Molly leaves Joe for pressuring Daniel to do something so insensitive. One night the nieces and nephews stop Molly as she comes home late, asking what she's doing, and she says she buys a TV guide every Monday night for Joe. They ask if she is sleeping with her uncle, and she replies if she was their uncle would be dead right now, but that she doesn't mind him looking at her because she likes this place and living comfortable. She adds she likes their uncle too, since he is tough and nice to her, but if he would ask to sleep with her she would leave. They remark they have not made their last move, and the nephew called Frank threatens her by saying people have accidents, and as they leave another nephew who cheated on his wife, touched her inappropriately. Next, Daniel is seen meeting Joe at one of his scrapping company's yards, telling Daniel he loves this place, adding he first thought Daniel came just for the money, like the others. He then apologizes for being heartless, telling Daniel he is a good kid, even though he is not as cute as he used to be. Daniel says he is sorry too for talking about money, remarking everybody needs it, but that he won't become an ass-licking wacko to get it. Joe makes a phone call as Daniel prepares to leave, but as Joe talks to a guy he gets distraught when realizing the trucking company he is calling has been out of business for the past 25 years. Daniel gets worried, and Joe explains he has memory gaps which is hurting his companies, saying his nieces and nephews will take the company and put him in a home if they find out. He says his lawyer had an idea of him signing everything over to someone as soon as possible, who cares for him so he isn't put away, and tells Daniel he will give it all to Molly. Daniel remarks he is making a rash decision, saying he should not trust a young woman he doesn't know with his money, but instead a family member he trusts. And as Daniel goes to fetch Joe's car, Joe laughs for himself. A day later, Daniel meets Robin at her job, explaining he needs to move in with Joe for a while to look after him. He says Joe might give his company and everything to him, since his mind is slipping, and he will have to give everything to someone who truly cares for him. Next, Joe is telling Molly he has memory gaps, and explains his lawyer told him to sign everything over to someone, and remarks he will give everything to Daniel. Molly gets upset, saying he hasn't seen Daniel for 25 years, asking if he can even trust Daniel, and Joe remarks he doesn't know who to trust, and maybe just should give it all to her. Daniel, who has been bowling on the other side of the room, suddenly sees Molly hugging Joe, and as Joe gets a phone call, he tells Molly to stay and talk to Daniel. She tells him that his cousins threatened to kill her, accusing him of helping them, and then tells him to leave Joe alone, and Daniel, confused, replies she should keep her breasts off Joe's eyebrows. Daniel confronts the cousins if they threaten Molly, and they lie, saying Molly didn't want to tell them if she makes sure Joe is taking his medication, and that Frank angrily said he could kill her for that. The others then remark they should just declare Joe incompetent and put him in a home, making Daniel think they are cruel. And suddenly Joe chokes on something, and the cousins hope he dies. Uncle Joe coughs the food up, and Frank accuses Molly of trying to kill Joe. But Joe sticks up for Molly, saying she was the only one trying to help him. Joe says he has made a decision and tells Molly to come with him, but then Daniel puts on a show singing Joe's favorite song. Uncle Joe immediately gets into a better mood, getting a smile on his face and starting to clap his hands. They sing together and makes a big finish, and Daniel winks to Robin. Robin suddenly thinks Daniel has become as greedy as his cousins, leaving him until he gives up this wicked mindset. Daniel tries to justify it by saying the cousins told him Molly is not giving Joe his medication and will kill him, and so he has to save him, adding, "It is not about the money." A couple days later, Daniel is eating a nice meal when learning from the butler that Joe left with Molly for a business trip to Washington, having booked a honeymoon suite there. Worried, he quickly flies to Washington and goes to the hotel to get the room number where Joe is. The hotel manager is impossible to get an answer from, and so Daniel threatens to ruin the hotel reputation, since an old man is shacked up there with a very young girl. The hotel manager says most of these rooms have old men with young girls in them, because this is Washington. That night, Daniel sees Molly in a window as Joe suddenly calls for her, and the next day Joe has found out where he stays and comes by. He says he and Molly had a fight, and Daniel hopes it wasn't serious. Joe says he doesn't think anyone can love him for being himself, not even his mother did, who left him and his brother in a home when he was 3 years old, and Daniel tries to comfort him by saying he loves him. Next, he is explaining to Robin what has happened, and that he will make sure to take care of Joe, whatever happens, and share Joe's fortune fairly. Just not with his selfish and crazy cousins. The cousins storm in and Frank really feels like killing him right there and then. Molly appears, thinking they are all plotting together, but Daniel explains he is only there looking out for Joe's well-being, and the two almost start physically fighting. Daniel says Molly can get $500,000 as soon as he gets the fortune, but when she answers she will have it all, he replies she won't get anything then. And then she draws the final card, saying she will sleep with Joe to get it. They all realize Molly has all the power now, and that Joe will give her everything if she sleeps with him. And later that day, Molly welcomes Joe home. She walks up to Joe whispering something to him, and he says he will retire to his room right away, and that Molly will help him. Daniel tries to stop him, but Robin prevents him and Joe, and Molly goes up to his bedroom. Suddenly Joe's cousin Daniel Sr. appears from nowhere, remarking the girl looks a bit young for him, explaining his son Daniel made him come because things are different. But then he says he can see there is no difference, that this place still stinks of greed, with those who have it, and those who want it. Molly now feels bad, and on his way out, Daniel and his father start arguing about greed, and his father asks his son to pick a side to leave with him or stay. Daniel says he will stay, that at least Joe doesn't take himself so goddamn seriously. That evening, Molly walks by Daniel outside, saying she is leaving, and that she can't believe she almost screwed the old man for money, just wanting him to promise to not put Joe in a home, and Daniel promises. Robin remarks that was an intense moment with his father, and Daniel reveals it was an actor, that his father would never come. She thinks he is sick and lost, saying if he touches 1 cent of Joe's money she will leave him. And next up, Daniel and Joe are gathered with lawyers. They explain, Joe will transfer all his assets to Daniel, including his scrapping company, trucking company and other companies. Daniel interrupts, remarking he just wants to say that he didn't want to have his money when he came to see him the first time, and that he will take such good care of him. Suddenly the cousins appear yelling stop, having brought Daniel's real father, who asks Daniel if what his idiot cousins have told him is true. Daniel admits it is true, that he hired an actor, and his father asks if money really means this much to him. Daniel says he didn't come there for the money. But then, seeing the cousins wanting to put Joe away, he got sucked in. And then one thing didn't seem wrong, which led to another thing that didn't seem wrong. His father replies that nothing of it seemed wrong, which is the very reason he left. And they hug before his father asks how Joe is, wishing him good, and leaves. Frank takes over, saying they have all had enough, having found out about Joe's incompetence, and will use lawyers to sue him until he is forced to give them his fortune. Joe says all right, and then asks all to sit down to continue, and his lawyer saying that at its peak his assets were valued at $25 million. He then adds that at the moment, however, Joe is $100,000 in debt, and that the meeting in Washington was to make a deal to keep him out of jail. They are going to take his estate, and the lawyer says the cousins will have to inherit the debt. And they all become absolutely furious. Frank starts screaming that Joe is a pathetic old man, but then Daniel stands up yelling that's enough, and will kick Frank's ass if he continues. Frank says come on, and the two starts hitting, throwing and choking each other. They all starts becoming insane, and then the cousins start attacking each other too. All leave except Daniel, and Uncle Joe is surprised that he is not leaving him there alone too. And Daniel asks him for the truth, and when he first knew he was bankrupt. Joe says the truth is, he knew 1 year ago, and that he is an old and broke man who needs help. And Daniel angrily replies, he should have told him from the start, that now is too late. Daniel says he lost his girlfriend and that he hates that he did this, and at Robin's job the day after she sees Daniel in the crowd. She asks what happened. And Daniel says Joe was totally broke, asking himself when he became so obsessed with money, that he wasn't greedy before. Robin asks what will happen to Uncle Joe, and he jokes his cousins probably will hang him, but says seriously he doesn't know. He says he feels sorry for him, and should probably check on him, and the two go to the estate to find him. But the butler doesn't know where Joe is, since he is not employed anymore. Sometime later Daniel manages to find where he is placed, and asks where his hat is, and he says it got sold in the auction. Suddenly Daniel says he and Robin are getting married, and figured they will adopt him, bringing him to Robin's current place where they will live. They show him his room, asking what he thinks, and Joe says he doesn't like it, and being very nice they agree on trading rooms. He says he doesn't like it either, and want to go back to his mansion, and first being upset, Daniel becomes understanding and tries to explain it, is all gone. Suddenly Joe brings out his hat and laughs, telling them to look out the window, and outside they see Molly and his butler, and Daniel questions him in doubt if he truly is broke. Joe says he is richer than shit, but wanted to see who really loved him, saying everything he owns from now on, he will share equally with them, asking if they want to come live with him. Daniel first gets upset saying he can't do this to people, making him promise never to do something like this again, which Joe agrees on. Then Joe says they should go, stands up, and walks out on his own legs. The end. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this, and hit the like button to help us out. Until next time, take care.